Welcome to episode 1 of the Brothers of Liberty. I'm Jacob.
I'm Kyle. Episode 1, it feels so official.
I know, right?
It's like, what if this actually matters someday?
Sir Kyle, what would you like to talk about then?
Oh man, you can't ask me that. I want to answer like some horribly inappropriate answer. We were just talking about the upcoming presidential election between GOATus, greatest president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, hero, founding father of the new republic, really, as he will be remembered, compared to sleepy Joe Biden. Sad, really, that he's being forced to run. It's really just going to be lambs to the slaughter in these debates. Hopefully 4 debates. Joe Rogan is potentially going to host the greatest debate of all time. We all know it's not going to happen. Biden's not going to do it because he is sad and old and dying. His brain is melting. God rest his soul. Jacob, we were talking about potential results of the election. So, what are the odds Biden wins?
That's a good question. To be honest, I don't know. Because, obviously there's a lot of, I guess, aggressive and egregious bias in terms of the media. But if you have to look at it in terms of, at the very least, voter enthusiasm and just essentially, it's difficult because it's all about Trump, really, for the most part. And you can't really actively poll his base effectively.
Right.
So it's just really difficult. And that's the part, because, that's not going to really... If you don't like Trump, you're probably going to vote for Biden, or you're just not going to vote at all.
I'm skeptical on that. Obviously, nobody is actually pro-Biden. There might be 3 people in the United States. If you're listening to this and you're pro-Biden, I'm so sorry that you are so delusional and lost that you're supporting basically a zombie person.
We're sympathetic.
Yes. I'm not. He's nicer than I am. You can go fuck yourself at this point if you support Biden. Just imagine seeing Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi in a room together and going, yep, those are the people that I want to run this country. Those 2 old, decrepit zombies with melting bones. That's who is most well-equipped to actually decide what is right for me and my family and the values that I care about. That's who's doing it right. Nancy shit on the street Pelosi.
It's also really difficult, too, because I love history, and I'm a big historian, and I'm doing a series on presidents in American history. And it's just difficult because, more or less, other than some extenuating factors, you can kind of, at the very least, get a projection of what each election is going to be like. Every single election is really interesting, and a lot more are generally contested than we realize, at least historical context speaking. And this is the 2016 election was probably the first one where everything, you couldn't predict it whatsoever. You couldn't predict Trump, you couldn't poll him. You could poll Reagan for the most part. I mean, 1980 when Reagan got, the nomination, there was no hesitation. Everyone was saying it was going to be an aggressive landslide. They could poll them. Everyone was not enthusiastic about Jimmy Carter. I mean, in fact, it was kind of funny, actually. I was watching the actual NBC, 6-hour long view of it, part of it, and everyone's like, oh, yep. Halfway through, Reagan had already won about 280 electoral votes, and it was...
Was it like watching the Young Turks realize that Donald Trump was going to be their president? And watching them just lose control?
Well...
Oh, that was amazing.
Unfortunately...
Young Turks, by the way, last time I ever watched your show, go fuck yourselves, you fucking liars.
Unfortunately, it was in an era where they were... I don't even want to say honest, but they were like, Reagan won. Cool. Next. What are we gonna talk about now? What's next? But now it's...
They didn't melt down and cry and scream into the sky.
But the point being, for the most part, there's a general idea. For the most part, obviously narrative too. For the most part, but I guess it's not as simple as it once was. All this was before everyone knew Obama was going to win against McCain.
Right.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And that was before social... obviously, it was a bit of a narrative thing. But we could all guess that, no one wanted another continuation of Bush's policy.
Right. It just felt like that's what was going to happen. I was 17 at the time when Obama was running against McCain. And my reasoning at the time, albeit as uninformed and stupid as I see it now, I think it's kind of how the average person was feeling. And my thought at the time was Obama was new to the political scene. He didn't have time to be corrupted by the system. He was going to make things different. Whereas McCain, he had been involved in this system for so long. He was just another old white guy. I'm sorry, again, once again, I was 17. But you just knew that McCain was going to carry on the same system that Bush had started. You know, I knew war was bad. I didn't know anything about it or why it was bad, what caused it, anything about that. I just knew that the thing you were supposed to feel at the time was that war was bad. And you knew that McCain was going to carry on those wars, and you knew that Obama was going to end the wars. He was going to be the change. He was going to be the fresh face that America actually needed. He was the one that understood us. And it turned out that he just continued on the wars and ended up being completely antithetical to all of my young, stupid values at the time. And, you know, by the time 2012 came around and it was Obama versus Romney, I just didn't even care anymore. I legitimately felt like it didn't matter who won. I didn't pay attention at all, even though I was of voting age. I just knew that it didn't matter. You know, which liar did I want to put into office? Because I knew at that point that they were both just trying to feed words to me to convince me to vote for them. And it's like, what you're saying right now has no effect on what your policy is actually going to be.
That's why I think it's interesting, too, because you could say the same thing about Trump in a lot of ways. Everyone was so aggressively sick of the entire political system that they would rather have a very orange man in office rather than another 4 years of effectively worse Obama policies.
You know what's ridiculous, thinking back to when Trump won, too, is I laughed when he won. I was no Trump supporter at the time. I hated him. I was a good little socialist Bernie Sanders supporter at the time. You know, I did the Facebook post that I was supposed to do to fit in with all the cool kids. But I definitely hated Hillary. I was very confident that Hillary was definitely going to get us into World War III. But I definitely didn't like Trump. But when it started to become clear that night that he was actually winning, this was the day before my birthday, by the way, so watching all the liberals cry the next day was my birthday present. That was fantastic. But being one of the few people the day before the election that legitimately thought that Trump had a chance to win, so I wasn't surprised watching him win, unlike apparently everybody else, watching everybody's shock and just this disbelief that this could happen. And I wasn't in tears with laughter, but I was borderline hysterical watching these people who were so sure of themselves that Hillary had this election and there was no way Trump could win, like they were psychics. And it's like, were you guys not paying attention to polls in battleground states? Like, you just ate up all of this fucking narrative from the media that was like, oh, there's no way Trump can win. 99%. Nate Silver says that it's a 99% chance that Hillary will win, therefore it's guaranteed. And me and, like, one other internet troll that I knew, he actually thought Trump would win. I was kind of on the 50-50 fence. And then when it happened, we were just like, of course, this is what is deserved. But I definitely didn't think that he was going to follow through with what he was saying. I just knew that Hillary was lying. So I thought Trump was going to be an incompetent idiot who would not be able to get anything done that he said. I was like, you know what? At least he is going to be really bad at fucking us over. Exactly. And that's a lot better than Hillary. Because Hillary was going to be a brain surgeon of fucking us over. And we'd be done. There was no way. But I thought we could at least stop Trump from fucking us. And then the next 3.5 years happened. And I was like, holy shit, he actually went through with everything he said. You know, not everything, of course. You know, things got tied up in courts and blah, blah, blah. But he actually made a legitimate effort to follow through with what he said. You know, hate or love what he was saying, you have to admit, no other president in modern times has done as much as they said they were going to do.
The last one's probably James K. Polk. He basically campaigned on 4 things, and he only served 1 term. But by the time he left, he literally did all those 4 things.
And then voluntarily left.
And then died 3 months later because of...
Wow.
I've never seen a man work so hard in my entire life. You should see like the before and after pictures.
Right.
Jet black hair, and by the time he leaves office, he looks like he's 70, even though he's 53.
The long ass silver hair.
I will say this: I didn't know he was gonna win, but
You also weren't alive, so. Oh, do you mean Trump or
yes,
Polk?
Come on. Orange man in my lifetime. I will say that, especially doing my research into all these, it's to be president, it's very hard to actually feel the economic effects that a president will actually do. Most of it's basically with Congress and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it sounds ironic, but like the 3 or 4 that actually you felt the economic effects, at least in this modern times, would be FDR, Jimmy Carter, and then Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
Positive and negative. But at least with Obama, like if you want to have like a bit of an economics class where like just his policies alone continue to basically stifle the American economy, and obviously take away American liberties and whatnot, continuing a whole bunch of different programs. But I guess what I'm trying to say is no other president, at least in the modern context, you really felt just the effects of their policies so egregiously in a much more like
it's like celebrity policies.
But like there's a whole bunch of economic theories about like the Great Recession and how it happened, obviously.
Right.
But it's very clear that his policies, especially with the Affordable Care Act, stifled the economy just so dangerously to a point where he basically prolonged this recession than it would have been.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think people felt that.
There's FDR too.
FDR too, without hesitation. But I think it gets to a point where reality does not just conflicts so much with what you're being force fed in terms of media and every single influence. And there's actually a really good story about like when the whole Benghazi happened, when Obama was getting elected, and effectively the media just blacklisted it. They didn't even want to bring it up for the most part until after the fact in 2013, where it became a big story and really
the media basically turned it into a conspiracy theory, and it's like no.
And then Fox News is like, oh fucking,
Yeah, of course, Fox News gets their dick hard over everything that they can be anti-Obama, but it's like, it might be mostly true.
But now we're looking at the 2020 election, and you think Trump has, and I tend to functionally and fundamentally agree. Trump, I don't see a way he loses.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't know. Does that make any sense?
As in, he could do something today or tomorrow that causes him to lose?
I just feel like, okay, either mail-in voting is going to be the thing that really takes it up, and it's just going to be this whole... I mean, regardless, if that does happen, Trump's still technically going to win, regardless.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to sufficiently cheat through the mail-in voting to actually win. They might try. I suspect that they will try. I don't think it'll be effective enough to win.
I guess I'm just trying to give like a counter argument, because whether or not people agree, I think the media influence, I don't know if it's going to be enough to basically stop Trump, but I know that's done enough to basically create this cultural and ideological divide for the most part.
Okay, so there was already one time where it wasn't enough to stop Trump, and that was 2016.
That's true.
And this is something that I've been banking on for damn near 2 years now, and I was really hoping it was true then, still really hoping it's true, so let's hope this plays out how I think it will. The media influence back in 2016 was weaker than it had ever been before, even though all of those corporations had gained so much power and had so much monetary influence over thought at the time. Mm-hmm. They could put out whatever they wanted and make every single person walking through an airport believe what they had to say. Mm-hmm. But the problem was YouTube had started to gain prominence at that time.
Oh, yeah.
So all the YouTube commentators, from Shapiro to Crowder, all those guys, they were starting to actually be able to spread a contrary message. And I think just that little voice was enough to tip the election. It was only a few thousand votes in a few different states. And, you can see evidence of that in how YouTube and Facebook and Twitter have attempted to silence any voices that are effectively pro-Trump.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just being pro-Trump, it's effectively pro-Trump. You have to actually pose a threat to their business model being the winning Democrats. So you actually have to be able to cause them threat, and then they will take the risk of shutting you down. But they can't do it with big names like Shapiro and Crowder, because the blowback of that will be so powerful that it's going to... Yeah, they're too big to fail, basically. But they have gotten so much bigger since 2016. And there are so many other creators that were basically nothing back in 2016 that have now risen to prominence, kind of on the coattails of the Crowders and Shapiros. But still, nonetheless, their voices get out there and they get spread. They get shared on Facebook. They get shared on Twitter, albeit against the wishes of Facebook and Twitter. They try to silence it, but there's only so much they can do. So I think the counter media, the alternative media, has gained a lot of power since 2016. Whereas the traditional media has lost even more power than the alternative media has gained. I think at this point, basically the YouTube media is more influential politically than the mainstream television media.
That's fair.
And that was not the case in 2016, and Hillary still lost.
I think I'm just worried too, mainly because the truth is there's a lot more people that are functionally aware of everything that's happening, but there's still a lot of people that really don't know, and I think that's what I'm curious about for the most part. Like, I feel like anybody that's going to vote for Biden for the most part isn't going to usually be... Like, if you're an informed individual and you consciously choose to vote for Biden, that's something else entirely. But, Democrats will probably vote blue no matter who, or people who,
If the Democrats really thought that they would be able to get enough Biden voters out to the polls, would they really be fighting this aggressively for mail-in voting?
No. I don't think so.
They're willing to die on this sword for mail-in voting.
Even though
they see the potential fraud, the potential political blowback from pushing for it, but they are still going 100% for mail-in voting as a last-ditch effort, almost as strong as they were going for impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
They know that they need it to win.
Agreed.
People are not going to go out to vote for Biden, and Biden knows it. Okay, well, to be fair, Biden doesn't know it. Biden doesn't know anything. His brain is melting. Poor old man, God rest his soul. But
what'd you say, Kyle?
his team that is controlling him and, pushing him out on stage and tucking him in at night and, shuffling his cue cards inefficiently so that he can't read an interview on whatever channel that was. Was that Fox? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought on that one. He's just...
Well, let's look at it from maybe like a state's perspective, for instance.
Like swing states?
Swing states.
Okay.
It's very clear any Republican state, I believe, for the most part, that voted for Trump, other than the obvious swing states, they're going to vote for Trump. And California and New York, at least in my view, I don't think they're going to win, but I think they're in play, at least for Trump. If he wins one of those, it's already over. So let's just be real about that. But the swing states, like maybe Florida. Would Arizona be considered a swing state? Or...
Do you want the opinion of the news or somebody who has traveled to Arizona several times in the last month?
That's fair.
Now...
No.
I am told that Arizona is a swing state. And I've been to several cities in Arizona in the last few months.
That's the state of Barry Goldwater, the father of the conservatism movement. So...
Man, I can see in some of the bigger cities how there might be some Biden support. There was riots in Phoenix and stuff like that, but...
It's more than just one or two counties. So.
I have never seen such a high concentration of Trump flags. You go down a single street and every house has a Trump flag. Where the hell are the Biden neighborhoods in that state?
None, I don't think. And that's why I think it's very fascinating and interesting. So,
Yep.
well, right now... Sorry, I didn't mean to
No, you're fine.
what would be the actual swing states that might be swing states for the most part? Florida's probably one of them. I mean, it always is.
I don't know, dude. I don't buy it. I don't buy that any of these typical traditional swing states that are important for an election are actually swing.
Interesting.
I don't buy the polling. I just don't think that they can efficiently poll actual likely voters. How the hell are they doing that? They're not able to actually figure out who is likely to go out and vote for Trump based on what has happened in the last 4 years.
They can't. They
literally cannot. I'm not just saying that they are incompetent. I'm saying it can't be done. You cannot measure the people who were lost economically, who got jobs and actually had hope for the first time. People who for 4, 8, 12, 16 years didn't know how they were going to put food on the table for their kids, finally for the first time saw the ability to be able to retire. These people marching in the streets who want more for themselves and they want a complete demolition of this system because 1619 Project says it was built on racism. They do not understand life. They have not been through anything. They don't know what actually drives people to the polls. All they know is their tiny little sheltered know-nothing lives shown to them by college professors.
It's like I love the Founding Fathers, but it's like, the Continental troops that several times had actually attempted to install their own style of government because they were sick of the Founding Fathers who didn't fight in the war, for better or worse, unfortunately.
Yeah, the elites.
The elites. But, interesting. Okay, let me ask you this question then.
Mm-hmm.
How many states does Biden win, and what states do you think he would win? I think, realistically, I think it's just 2 blue, but I'm not going to be shocked either way. Probably California and New York.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to say that he won't win those. I think there's a possibility that Trump sweeps, but if Trump takes New York and California, it's a 50-state sweep.
Oh, yeah.
What is Biden going to keep his home state, Delaware?
No.
Okay, maybe it's a 49-state sweep. Biden takes Delaware. Cool, good for Delaware. But I don't know. I don't know how the polling looks in Delaware right now.
What about
I mean, Vermont is like the bluest state in the nation.
Yeah, that's
it's like 80% Bernie Sanders up
Bernie.
there. But since it is so pro Bernie, they might not like Biden.
That is true.
You might have voters staying home.
The DNC took that away from Bernie.
It's also one of the most pro-gun states in the nation.
That's true.
And Biden has been propping up Beto O'Rourke to be his gun czar.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, of course we're going to take away your AR-15s. It's like, of course you can go fuck yourself and lose your political career, Beto. You're nothing.
That's true.
I'm going to fight that motherfucker in Texas. Swear to God.
What
I will campaign against Beto O'Rourke. That is a life goal of mine.
Okay. And I feel you.
Fuck him.
Well then,
fucking Roboito.
Well then, let me ask you some of the clear blue states and what might happen with them, like Washington, for instance, or Minnesota, Michigan. What do you think might happen? Because I feel like
Minnesota goes Trump.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I don't know about Washington or Oregon.
Washington is largely red besides Seattle.
That's what
but
I'm
it's
thinking.
such a population center that I don't know. I haven't looked into the polling of that one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Same thing with Oregon, actually. Portland keeps it weird.
Mm-hmm.
All you Portlanders out there, you're cool. I just don't want to live there.
Michigan's an interesting one.
Yeah, I see Michigan going Trump, too.
Virginia? I think, is Virginia still blue?
Traditionally blue. I'm sure they went blue in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
They have... I think that's where Ralph Northam is, right? The governor?
Blackface governor, yes.
Yeah. Mr. We'll keep the babies comfortable, and then we'll have a conversation with the mothers, and then we'll put the babies in what's known professionally as a rear naked choke. And when the baby goes to tap out, we will not respect that tap. We are going to murder that baby. That is Governor Ralph Northam. That is a direct quote.
God damn. So, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, historically, at least in the last several elections, have been pretty blue. But I think both of them actually swung for Trump, didn't they? Or at least one of them did. I think Pennsylvania was red last.
Yeah, I think Pennsylvania went Trump. Yes. Like I said, like logically, you cannot say all of these traditionally blue states could possibly go Trump. Like, just the odds of that are like lower than the odds of like UFOs being announced by the U.S. government, which happened. So,
because I look at it this way, and even in like a worst case scenario, like absolute worst case, like voter fraud, whatever, or Trump does something within the next 4 months that just makes him unvotable for I don't know what, but I just see like he's gonna win at least 38 states. I think is like the line. I think minimum.
I think so. Win. Yeah, at least.
And it just depends on the 12 that would hypothetically have to go blue. I mean, hypothetically, it could win the presidency with just 12 blue states. It just depends on the states with the highest.
Yeah, if you win, like say you could win California and Texas as the same.
Yeah.
You know, never happened. Oh God. So California, Texas, New York, Florida, Pennsylvania,
Minnesota, Michigan. You can make an argument like. The East and West Coast states.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know all the next highest populated states. I'm not a geographetician. True word. Look it up.
I guess, and don't get me wrong. I think he's gonna win. I'm just curious about like the counterintuitive, like counter arguments for it.
Right. And that's what I tried to think about. I tried to think of like a strategic plan for Biden to win.
Because he's not campaigning.
Right. Like
that's the problem.
Seriously, how the fuck do you win a campaign without campaigning?
You don't.
You just have to be super anti-Trump. But his approval rating in aggregate is now up to 45%. How the fuck are you going to campaign against a 45% approval rating?
I mean, I could always just go to like Harry Truman, for instance, because when he was going for his re-election for his own election, my God. I love Thomas Dewey. I think he's actually an interesting Republican candidate and a moderate in the late 40s and 50s.
Okay.
But you want to know what Truman did? He went to, I think at that point, like 40 states to campaign on his ticket. And he was going to be a landslide loss. And you want to know what happened? He won.
Because he campaigned, because it's effective.
There's actually a famous picture of a newspaper article that said, Dewey wins, and Truman's just smiling like, you know. And in fairness, I have a soft spot for Truman. I actually think he's incredibly underrated. He's the last good Democratic president, in my personal view.
Okay.
But you know what I mean, for the most part. Campaigning...
It's like saying the last good pedophile.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Campaigning won in the last election, too. Trump went to every single state, and Hillary basically didn't. And she just said, everyone's deplorable.
She had a cold. She couldn't campaign.
Yeah, and it's
She's having strokes.
But I will say, I think they're kind of going along with the same idea of, I don't want to say campaigning, but it's very clear that they're really banking on, and I don't know if it's just because they're idiots or they're banking on, you know, mail-in voting and all the negativity, like other factors that would potentially help them to win for the most part. Like the riots, for instance, and they're just constantly blaming it on Trump when it's really not, you know. COVID, it's really not, which is why you've just been seeing the aggressive attacks. It's just funny because everyone's just thinking like, hey, this is all Trump's fault. But then Nancy Pelosi, like a week before, is like, hey, go to Chinatown. And
it was like a month and a half after Trump publicly said, take it seriously. And she's like, no, seriously, go eat bats. It's totally safe. Like, make out with a Chinaman. It's totally fine.
So before we go to Trump,
it might be hyperbolic.
Before we go to Trump,
okay,
just curious. Let's say hypothetically Biden wins. He just wins outright.
Okay.
What do you think happens with his presidency and the next 4 years for the most part? How do you think it goes?
Biden wins. Does Senate go blue?
That's a good question. I don't know. I would think no. I think it goes back to the House. Or it goes back to the Republicans at that point.
So Senate stays Republican, House stays Democrat, Biden wins, nothing happens.
Nothing just happens.
Literally nothing will pass the House and the Senate.
Gridlock.
Right.
Lame duck Senate.
Right. I don't even see them being able to pass a budget. I see Republicans shutting down completely everything, not letting them do a goddamn thing.
Interesting. I actually agree with that. I think just everything's so partisan at this point. It's just
Right.
unbelievably fucking insane.
Yeah.
Sorry, I sound like that. Do you think Kamala would basically implement constitutional rights to effectively try and be president?
What is that? Is that
I'll give you the little I think it's the 23rd. It's the actual amendment that basically that does the whole line of presidents and the line of succession.
Yeah. So I know 22nd is presidential term limits.
Yeah, it's the one right after that.
Okay, so yeah, that would be 23rd. So presidential succession, and if he's not in state of mind,
I believe
vice president takes over.
Yes, and yeah,
Kennedy.
that's basically the little thing, and
Yeah.
it's happened numerous times. Richard Nixon did it for Eisenhower when he had a heart attack, although it was only for about like a day, and Nixon didn't take any power, surprisingly, which might surprise people. It happened.
No, he's a Republican.
It's happened numerous times, not just with death. It happened to Reagan when H.W. took over for about a week when Reagan was shot for the most part. Yeah, sorry, my brain's not working.
Neither was his when Nancy was actually running things at the end of his presidency, but we don't talk about that.
It's funny too. Like a lot of vice presidents and secretaries of state ended up taking. For the last year of Jefferson's presidency, it was basically Madison just running things.
Really?
That was a big reason why he ended up getting the presidency over James Monroe, who would later become his Secretary of State. So I guess hypothetically and realistically, because Biden more or less would be sundowning at that point, Kamala hypothetically would take over. How do you think she goes and works as a president and a president candidate for the most part?
I think she's a mix between Obama and Hillary, probably both policy-wise and politically. Like literally, she is the woman, person of color, and
the establishment. Yeah,
right? She's like the Power Ranger when they combine together. I don't remember what it's called. I'm not a big enough nerd. I'm sorry, Power Ranger fans.
I gotcha.
But how would she legislate? Or I guess not legislate, but how would she execute? I would say completely unpredictably, because she's going to take any step that increases her personal power.
Yes.
I don't even think she is the political shill. I don't think she is an ideologue. Trump is trying to hit her for being more liberal than Bernie. It's like,
wasn't like her
voting record, yes. But is that not just a path to power?
Yes, to an extent.
Was that not just an attempt at a shot at the presidency? Look at her prosecuting in California. She kept people in prison when they could have had what is it, appeal? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
Well, she kept them in prison for the most part.
She kept them in prison for cheap labor. That is slavery.
For really unconstitutional reasons.
Her fucking grandfather owned slaves. She owned slaves. She's a bad person.
I gotcha. I guess, because you want to know how I see it? Here's how I see it. If Biden wins, he's going to be president for a year and a half, maybe less.
Doubt it. I'm saying health emergency in the first 3 months.
Really?
Within the first 100 days. Everyone makes a big deal about the 100 days. He is having a health crisis.
He goes the way.
He
goes the way of William Henry Harrison.
Jesus, 30 days. No, I'm saying Kamala takes power in 100 days. But if Senate stays red, what is she supposed to do? Executive orders. All right, so she's going to fuck us up with executive orders. I don't know what she's capable of doing with executive orders, but frankly, it doesn't matter what she's capable of doing because both Obama and Trump now have had unconstitutional executive orders. Nobody gives a shit. So, what is Kamala capable of? Completely unpredictable. What can somebody possibly do to possibly maximize their personal power through executive order? Directive 51, dissolve the entire American government, reestablish a government by your own directive.
Interesting. It's kind of it kind of just pickles me because I hear some of these. That was George Bush, right?
Yes. Bush said that like right before he left office, I think.
How the hell did he get? Oh my God! I hear some of these
Well, I think it was an executive order that he signed to establish that. I don't think that was legislatively passed. I'm not sure. I would have to look into it, but...
Because, I mean, the Supreme Court's not that crazy, I feel, even back then, that they would be like, no, we need power. We're not going to fucking...
I don't know. As far as I know, from the wording of 51, it kills the Supreme Court, too.
Interesting.
Like, it's just done.
I think the people would take that.
I feel Depends on who does it, right? That's civil war.
I feel like
100% civil war. Biden does it, civil war. Harris does it, civil war. Trump does it, civil war.
Incredible. Don't you just love today's day and age?
I've been saying civil war for 2 years.
The founding fathers.
Just saying.
I wonder what like James Madison or Washington or Alexander Hamilton would be thinking right now.
A republic, if you could keep it.
I'm a Federalist at heart.
Samesies.
But a Jeffersonian right now would be like, "See, I fucking told you so."
I think a Federalist would be saying, "See, I fucking told you so." I don't know though. Like, hell, that would be just as fucking polarized as today's political party saying, "No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, this is what you did that caused this. No, you did this and that caused that."
It is.
And it would just be the same fucking fight, but with really old people with stupid shoes.
In fairness, it depends on the Federalist. Hamilton would be appalled at this, to be honest with you. But you know what he wanted in terms of like presidential term limits? 7 to 20 years.
Jesus.
And I was surprised by that. Well, then again, John Adams wanted George Washington to be called a king.
Right, so serve for life.
So who knows?
Right.
It depends. But at the same time,
these ideas evolve over time.
And Washington was something else entirely.
I feel like Jefferson would love this because he was such a Francophile that he'd be like, "Oh my God, it's just like the French Revolution. Cut their heads off."
Exactly.
Okay, fine. He was a Francophile before the French Revolution, but whatever. It's a funny joke. Okay, shut up.
Now let me ask you a couple more things. San Diego, the city that we're currently in, although you're leaving.
Leaving. Thank fucking God. Fuck this state. Fuck California.
San Diego, at least even historic, it's a very interesting city.
Right, it's like a red gem in a blue sea.
I wouldn't even say it's moderate. Like that.
Yeah, but comparatively.
Comparatively, it might as well just be Reagan conservatism here.
Yeah.
In relatively to in comparison, I'm just curious what just the vibe from this city alone, this county. Where do you think it goes? Because I'm leaning towards it actually probably gonna go red, but I don't quite know.
Oh, San Diego's Trump.
Okay.
Like I can pretty much guarantee this. San Diego's Trump.
It's kind of funny too, because I work at Miramar and there's a bunch of Filipinos, and they are like old school Filipinos, who had served in the military, and they are all full blown Trump. It's quite fascinating, to be honest with you. All right, now let's go with the likely results. Trump wins.
Okay.
What do you think is the likely outcome of the election, like in terms of popular electoral college? Do you think?
I think Trump takes the popular vote, honestly.
I agree. I don't see any way, because if you're going to vote for Trump, you're voting for Trump. If you're not going to vote for Trump, your only choice is to vote for Biden. And I think most people would rather not vote at that point.
Like I said before, that's why they're pushing for mail-in voting. If everybody has to go to the ballot, people will not go for Biden. They might sit at home and go, "I sure don't like that orange man. I sure hope he doesn't win." But they're not going out to vote. Why the fuck would they?
They're not.
There's not enough people that are anti-Trump to go out and vote. There's definitely not enough people who are pro-Biden. Like, I can only speak for San Diego, but I meet a lot of people through work. I go in a lot of people's houses. I see the books that they read. I get intimations about their political leanings quite often, especially if they have a gun safe or a red hat. And I just know that there are not a lot of Biden supporters out there. I will occasionally have somebody who will mention something about not liking Trump. They always have CNN on. But I've never, ever heard anything pro-Biden.
And that's the thing. CNN, if they have it on, they're probably not liking Biden, so they would just not vote.
They like Brian Stelter. I do not care about their political views. They are stupid. Brian Stelter is useless.
Is he bald now, or does he have like the little?
He has the thing with
Gotcha.
the little bit of hair left. And if you're bald, that's fine. I don't care. As long as you're not fucking Brian Stelter. Because that ugly little queen is only on TV so that he can wear makeup and not get beat up.
How many states do you think Trump wins?
All of them. Fuck Brian Stelter.
It's gonna make him cry.
No, I don't know. I can't make the state count. I can't be able to answer that question honestly until the day before the election. You have to read all of the polls up until then. Read aggregates. Don't just read polls that you think are accurate because they align with what you believe. Confirmation bias. That's stupid. Don't do that.
You're just cherry picking at that point.
Yeah. Cherry picking via confirmation bias. And it's just, you're stupid, and that's why you're going to think Hillary Clinton has a 99% chance of winning. Idiots. Oh, that was the best birthday present ever!
What happens during Trump's next 4 years, realistically? To the best of your current knowledge right now.
Federal decriminalization of marijuana.
He might do that before the end of his...
I think he might. I think that might be his October card.
Like, if it's just going not his way, he might just do that.
I don't know if it even matters if it's his way or not his way. I don't see him personally having a problem with marijuana. And I think if he knows that he can throw that out there and just crush Biden, especially on how many people are on prison because of the immorality of the illegalization of marijuana and Joe Biden's crime bill.
You see all these people? You put them here in prison? Hey, you're free to go, okay?
Like, if he federally decriminalizes and releases anybody from federal prison who is only there because of non-violent marijuana charges, which, by the way, is not a lot of people, might be zero, not sure. It's not a big number of people like people would think it is, because you don't typically go to federal prison for only possession of marijuana.
Yes.
Incredibly rare. And if you do, you probably have a shitload of weed. If you have that much weed, you probably have guns, other things. You're probably doing other illegal
Extenuating
things.
factors.
It's extremely uncommon to be in federal prison for possession of marijuana alone. That being said, if anybody is in federal prison for possession of marijuana alone, I think they should be completely pardoned, and Trump should completely federally decriminalize and personally push for states to legalize.
Mm-hmm.
If he is riding that surfboard, literally trying to influence states to legalize, not just going, oh, it shouldn't be a federal issue, like the weak sauce typical Republican shit, but if he actually pushes for an issue and tries to push for change, that's going to get a shitload of people to go vote for him. Or at least not go vote for Biden.
Starts with that first step back, and then who knows what's going to happen.
And then aside from that, he has the economy.
You know what? I was very hesitant about it, especially with the initial numbers. But it's recovering in a way that it's kind of making people stumped on what's actually happening. You know what I mean?
The reason it's making people stumped is because they are not willing to believe that Trump actually knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what he has done in his career.
Yes.
He has 4 bankruptcies. Shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. Go sit the fuck down. You don't get to fucking talk anymore. How much money do you have?
Well, I think people just don't understand what a bankruptcy is.
No, not at all. They're stupid. They don't get to talk anymore. They don't get to vote. They can go sit in the fucking corner, and they can go play with Play-Doh, and they can vote for Biden. I don't give a shit. I'm done listening to those fucking people. They don't get to talk at the table anymore. They're taking up our oxygen. We're not listening to them.
I gotcha. I know. I definitely feel you, dude.
Trump knows what the fuck he's doing. He is obviously a successful businessman. Oh, he's mean to his employees. Yeah, they probably suck.
Yeah.
You want to know why he's successful? Because he's mean to his shitty employees.
He's a capitalist. He knows how to make money.
Oh, capitalism is mean. Posted from my iPhone. Shut the fuck up. Sit in the corner. Eat the Play-Doh.
Man, people need to really check themselves when they say shit like that. I don't know. It's just the way people are. But let me ask you this, too. What about foreign policy?
Jesus Christ. Who would you rather have over Trump at this point? Are you kidding me?
Do you think he wins a Nobel Prize in the second term? Nobel Peace Prize.
Do I think he wins? 0% chance.
What if
Does he deserve it? 100%.
What if like 5 of the countries are like, can we just give him the Peace Prize at this point, please?
Honestly, I am not an expert on the system of awarding a Nobel Peace Prize. I didn't even know just like random Norwegian dudes could just like nominate somebody. Like it honestly makes me want to become a random Norwegian dude so I can just nominate random people for a Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah. That being said, I'm just going to go ahead and take a guess here and say that whatever deciding committee on the Nobel Prize probably doesn't like the big orange meanie. They're probably just globalists who fucking hate him because they're all in the pocket of China. Just gonna assume that. Maybe I'm wrong. If I am wrong, yay. Good, Trump.
Real quick then, what do you think Trump's action is going to be towards both China and the Middle East?
Middle East, I see him bringing peace.
Really?
Yes.
Well, to be fair, they're just with Israel and
UAE.
UAE?
UAE, United Arab Emirates.
Got it. Like that alone, I was like, what? He did that?
Uh-huh.
Oh, it was just like a little ceasefire thing. Just like, okay, that's better than them bombing each other. Like, you know.
So basically why I see peace in the Middle East is basically everybody has something to gain from peace. Everybody in that area has economic power to gain through peace.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a new age where you no longer gain economically through war. You gain through peace. Because basically capitalism rocks. Now, one exception to that rule is if you are trying to become the new world superpower.
China.
And that is why I do not see peace in China.
No.
They cannot surpass us peacefully.
Do you think war will break out because of this?
Cyber war, like hacking, selling off people's information, stuff like that. That's definitely going to happen. I think that's already happening. I think a lot of identity theft and stuff like that is probably cyber warfare from China.
Mm-hmm.
Armed combat? I don't know. I don't know if China would be that bold. They're definitely going to pretend that they are that bold as long as they possibly can. There's definitely been analysis coming out recently saying that their military has surpassed us. I read some not long ago that their navy had surpassed ours.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I don't fucking buy it. I'm no expert. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Don't listen to me. Trust the experts. They write papers and shit. I talk to microphones in a car. I don't buy it because their entire military is made in China.
Mm-hmm. Poorly made.
And that's pretty much all I think I need to say about that. I do not buy their quality of manufacturing. I do not buy their quality of technology. I think they're lying about everything. I think they're bloviating just to pretend like they have tech that they don't. One example that I can speak of, the Chengdu J-20, their new supposedly 5th generation fighter, which, no it's not. It got picked up by like 4th generation Indian fighters, and they're like, yeah, no, we see you. You're not stealth. Like, your jet sucks.
And China.
Like, India was smart enough to buy fighters from France, so they have the far superior fighter, but China's just like, no, like, ours is better, and we have, like, a lot of them. And it's like, okay, well, also your propulsion system completely fucking sucks, and you can't super cruise, so your jets fucking blow. They're like, no, we can totally do that. It's like, no, we don't believe you anymore. Why are we sitting here believing that their military is superior? Do you know how many carriers they have? 1.5. Like, one of them, like, it just doesn't even count. And their second one that they count as their main flagship carrier is just a fucking rehold version of a fucking Russian ship from the 80s.
Probably bought from Pepsi.
It's not even nuclear powered. It's fucking traditionally powered, and You want to know why it looks stupid?
Because it is it's China.
Because the runway at the end of the carrier has to slope up.
Oh, God.
Because their jets are not powerful enough to take off from just a flat aircraft carrier like ours are.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do have to take off from that ramp, they can only carry half the munitions that we can on our jets that we're able to launch from a flat carrier. Mm-hmm. We can also carry twice as many jets on our carriers than they can on theirs. So we have 4 times the armament being able to fly out from our carriers. And as I said, they only have 1 real carrier. How many do we have? I think 8?
Something like that.
Plus, I want to say, this could be wrong, but like 12 amphibious assault vehicles, which are basically just aircraft carriers, but for like helicopters and shit like that. Oh, you want to guess whose helicopters are better? I have a good fucking guess.
America.
Like, seriously, how the fuck can they say that their navy is superior to ours? You wanna know why? Because they have more ships. Just that. Just more.
Yeah, it's always about the quality.
Yeah, we can fuck them to death.
If one of our ships can take down 4 of theirs, is that really superiority?
They're talking all of this shit about having hypersonic weapons, which are basically rockets that fly faster than 5 times the speed of sound.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Don't buy it.
Be like one of our battleship cruisers going against like a Chinese ironclad ship, like
pretty much like fucking Civil War's ironclad ship versus a nuclear powered fucking American destroyer. It's not that bad, okay? It's not that bad. But they can't even get a jet to take off from a normal aircraft carrier. And I'm supposed to believe that they have a sufficient number of hypersonic missiles that our entire navy should be worried about. Our 7th Fleet alone, which is currently guarding the Taiwan Strait, could fuck their navy to death.
If they can't do the competent things.
Mark my words, the 7th Fleet alone would fuck them to death.
What do you think happens in Hong Kong and Taiwan?
So who do they attack first?
It's probably, well, they'll probably have to figure out the problem with Hong Kong
Well,
first.
I think they're going to Hong Kong politically. I think they're doing political subversion more than
actual
conflict. They have the riots in the street. They're fighting the riots.
In fairness, if they were going to send in the police, they would have already, or their military,
the military, right?
They would have already done it.
Right. I don't see them doing military engagement in Hong Kong. I think they're going to try to quell political unrest through political means. Mm-hmm. Taiwan, they might be planning an actual invasion. If they do, they lose. Taiwan is significantly stronger than most people would assume based on their stand in...
You know they have raid drills sometimes in the big cities.
Yes.
It's quite fascinating.
Yeah. They also have an incredibly strong air force for how small their population is.
Capitalist.
Completely aimed at defending against China. Now, they're not going to win that fight. They're never going to be able to fight off China. No. But what they will be able to do is fight off China long enough to keep them engaged in something and to quell forces against China. And it's going to be the United States, Britain, Australia, Canada, actually probably a lot of the Middle Eastern countries now. I think that's a lot of the reason for the peace talks in the Middle East.
India?
Oh, definitely India. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to mention India.
They're fucking in it.
India will be engaged with Pakistan, and they might not want to fight on 2 separate wars, though.
Jesus.
So, yeah, the India-Pakistan border is going to be crazy, because they're also going to be on the India-China border. So, India is probably going to be completely engaged in ground conflict with China and Pakistan, whereas we're going to be more concerned with the naval and air battle.
Yes.
So that's why we're going to need the other European nations to come in. But by the time China is able to make sufficient grounds into Taiwan, I think it's going to be too late, and we're going to be able to build up a significantly large enough naval force to just completely wipe the floor with them.
A couple more things, 2 more things.
People are probably thinking that going into World War II as well, so...
A couple more things before we head out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So, first and foremost, let's look ahead real quick to 2024.
Okay.
Any potential... Who do you think would be the Democrat and Republican nominees for the 2024 election?
All right, Republican is a little bit easier. My top 3 would be Ted Cruz, Dan Crenshaw, and Josh Hawley. I see them both, or all 3, as capable and positioning themselves for it.
Yes.
Crenshaw a little bit less intentionally, and I think he's probably going to have to be 3rd on the list, even though I like him a lot. He is only a congressman, while the other 2 are senators.
Not to mention, too, like, Crenshaw's, like, he's just going to serve out his congressional term and just do what he's going to do for his people. So he's more... I feel like he's a little more common sense, and he's like, I'm really not prepared for this, so he probably want to do, like, another term or 2. Before.
Possibly. I think what's likely to happen is Cruz going for president, and then Crenshaw taking Cruz's Senate seat in Texas.
I think that'd be interesting.
And then positioning himself for the next presidential run. You know, I'm dreaming of pie in the sky of thinking that the next 3 presidents are going to be Republicans, but, you know, we can only hope. Yeah, 2024, so that's who I see as Republicans. I don't really see anybody else being that viable. I know there's been talk of some other people. One name that I did hear getting thrown around that I think might be a ringer would be Tucker Carlson.
Really?
Yeah. I think if he runs, he wins it.
Oh, without hesitation.
Because he already has the fan base and the ability to speak honestly against anybody. I think he would crush it.
He just wants what's best. You ever see some of the stuff with like him and I think it was Jon Stewart when they had a...
I didn't see that, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, I saw it at a young age. I forgot what the show was called, but...
The Daily Show?
No, they had their own show previously, and it was an actual political show. The one...
Crossfire?
Crossfire, that's what it was. A conservative perspective and a liberal perspective. But although back then, liberal meant something else.
Right.
Obviously.
It meant like us.
And I would argue conservatism back then was way more ideologically to the right than
that might just be how we viewed it, though. It might not have been that significantly different than it is today. I've been thinking about that lately, that maybe just my view on it at the time was skewed by my young, dumb blindness. So maybe it's always been kind of like this, and there was just like a little bit of badness in conservatism, and it was just highlighted by things like The Daily Show and our other sources. So I'm skeptical on the idea that conservatism has changed that significantly in this few years just because I have suddenly learned that conservatism is the way. That's kind of it would be a stupid assumption.
Any Democrat nominees other than
Tulsi Gabbard
or Pete Buttigieg?
Okay, I do not like Peter Buttigieg. I think he is a socialist, and I think he will try to destroy our country. I also don't like Andrew Yang. A lot of people kind of in my circles like Andrew Yang. I do not like him at all. I think he seems like a nice guy. I would like to talk to him. I would like to watch a football game and eat nachos with him. But I don't want him responsible for anything having to do with economics. Oh, but he's an Asian. He knows math. Shut the fuck up.
I'm an Asian. I'm terrible at math.
Yeah, it's like Jesus Christ. Like, the fact that he wears a pin on his chest that says math just because he's Asian is so fucking stupid. Just imagine any other race literally wearing their stereotype on their chest.
So strange.
Just...
I got you.
I won't even get into it because this will get censored because I'm gonna say bad jokes and then I'll get in trouble. So I don't like Yang. Other Democrats that I do like, I don't think they exist yet. I don't think they're in the political sphere yet. There might be people who soon are going to realize that there is a need for them to step up and run and actually try to fix the system and to stop letting the current either political elite power hacks or
I got you.
power hungry socialists be the ones controlling the party. There's no need for that. All you have to do is be reasonable and rational and care about people, and you could take the role of the next Democratic candidate.
That's why I don't even know what the Democratic Party is anymore, to be honest with you.
I think it's dead. I really do.
Do you think everyone just consolidates like the Democratic, Republican, Jeffersonians?
I don't know if the parties themselves will collapse, but I think the idea of the party, what they represented, is gone.
Because in fairness, during the Civil War, everyone thought the Democrats were dead. And then next thing you know, it only took 20 years or 30 years before they had their next Democratic president, Grover Cleveland. So
well, it wouldn't even take that long. It would take 6 years if we could get a good handful of congressional representatives. They're out there. They have to be. Like, I'm not that far away from a typical Democrat, personally. I could legitimately run as a Democrat in a lot of these places and just, like, kind of keep my mouth shut a little bit. Like, just censor myself a little bit. And I represent the values of most people well enough that I could win as a Democrat. And nobody realizes that all you have to be is a normal person. Just don't be one of these fucking lying snakes that just wants to fucking take advantage of people and grow power for themselves and their families and their friends and just get involved in this political cycle of enriching yourselves and raping the country.
I gotcha.
Like, if you just don't like people raping the country and you know that it happens, run for office.
You know, that's why I'm starting to like a lot of the Trump Republicans that are coming out, because a lot of them have, you know, everyone can be manipulated, and everyone, you know, all it takes is just maybe them coming in and then, hey, you know, buy me off with this and whatnot. But at the very least, they have a genuine skeptical assessment of, you know, a strong federal government, and they're more likely to, you know, be more small government for the most part.
And they're not all super pro-Trump. They're like, oh, yeah, he says a lot of dumb stuff, and, you know, maybe he shouldn't tweet like that. They're all, like, reasonably...
They're normal.
Yeah, exactly. It's all just normal people who have normal feelings about things.
That actually just want things to change.
And it's so weird that it's so strange to see those people running for political office. You're used to seeing these people who have these preconditioned speeches and they know how to hold their hands and, what I'm going to do for America is I'm going to lower your taxes, and I'm going to lower the national debt, and I'm going to give you everything for free, and I'm going to make sure you stay safe. It's like,
now suck your dick.
Right? It's like nobody believes that shit anymore. Like, if somebody actually just stands out there and speaks from the heart, they're suddenly loved by everybody, and nobody has seemed to figure this out besides like 5 people. That all you have to do is stop lying to people. Just be fucking real. Stop pretending you're something that you're not.
Exactly.
Because people can see through that.
Trump's probably one of the most honest presidents we've ever had. That's really weird.
But he's also still like a bullshitting businessman.
Exactly.
You know, you're not going to get to know the real guy. Like, if he walked into a room you never met before, and you talk to him for 10 seconds, you're not going to get to know the real guy. He has a facade. He's playing a character. It works fantastically. He is a political genius. But what we see is not the real man.
Yes.
He's bullshitting all the time, and it works. It's phenomenal how effective it is. It's hilarious. But it's not genuine.
Yeah, I got you.
Everyone thinks it's genuine because he's really good at convincing everybody that it's genuine, and it's not. But if somebody actually were to be genuine and not have to be a fucking dick to people who piss off everybody else, if you could just be real, and it were actually possible and the media wouldn't try to crucify you for being a racist anyway, who could fucking vote against that?
Trump's a unit, bro.
He's the unit.
And
Run for office.
I want to end on one final thought, then we'll get out of here. I was talking to you earlier about, since I'm doing this deep dive on American history, and this is just for my own conjecture, but I always think like some of the great presidents and some of the most historic presidents are the ones that have their own era, their own defining period of time where their influence fundamentally has changed the very fabric of the country. Like from Washington to Adams, I call that the Federalist era. You know, from Jefferson to John Quincy Adams, the Jeffersonian era. It was a big shift in the government. Same thing with the Jacksonian era, which went out all the way up to the Civil War, which was, you know, the people took back from the Founding Fathers, and it was a big shift. Then you have the Reconstruction era up until Teddy before he became the guy to put America on the map on the world stage. Then you have FDR and Harry Truman, I guess you could say, with communism. And then I think once Trump got elected, we left the Reagan era.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this, Kyle. What do you think the Trump era is? Because it is undoubtedly that things are so different with Trump than any previous time in the last 40 years, I guess you could say, with the Reagan era. And I'm just curious on your opinion of it, where it's going to go, and what you think is going to happen. Not for however long until another era pops up, I guess is what I'm trying to ask. Just your free-form thoughts.
I think the way that the Trump era will end up being measured in the future will be economically.
I agree.
I think despite the massive fucking dip because of coronavirus, even the recovery from that and then the increased gains over the next several years, and a lot of this is out of Trump's hands.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this is just technology on the future that is basically just
his
going
successors,
to cause,
everything.
it's just going to cause economic explosions.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I think that will all be marked as caused by him, even though it's technically not. It's a lot of stuff that's being developed by people like Elon Musk and, you know, the truly brilliant, great innovators of our time. They're the ones actually fueling it. But I think since it's all going to be in that same curve upward economically, I think that is how his era will be defined. Because I think the whole world peace, that has been getting better over time. Now, although what he has done is historic and magnificent, I think it's just kind of on a trend. It was going towards that anyway.
He's basically just there and just got lucky with it, basically.
Right, yeah. And I think the era itself will be dominated by economic success. I think that's what defines the Reagan era, too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and it crashed towards the end, and I think there will be a crash by the end of the Trump era.
Absolutely.
But I think
Fucking
it is
Federal
going
Reserve.
to be... I think anybody listening to this today, September 14th, 2020...
Yes.
It's almost midnight, so we're almost September 15th. I think the economic expansion that we're going to see over the next 10 years is going to be significantly greater than anybody listening to this could possibly imagine today.
That's beautiful.
And I think that will all be part of the Trump era.
I just think this is... Because he's been compared to Jackson in a lot of ways. At least in this... well, in this... Well, in fairness, for, like, you know, the racist stuff and
The
whatnot.
Trail of Tears.
But, like, also because his era is so aggressively defined with people just taking it back, you know, changing a lot of the voter things and people just getting sick of the Founding Fathers and their aristocracy almost, for the most part.
Populism.
Yeah. So now it's just basically like, even if it's wrong, which, in fairness, back then it was wrong because a lot of them were not really educated.
Right.
But now, I think more people nowadays have genuine common sense to reality. Well, you know what I mean. That's a little bit different. But now it's much more reasonable. But thank you.
Our populist is a billionaire real estate mogul. What the fuck happened?
I will say this. Trump's the man. He will tell you, like... He proved that you don't have to be a politician. Just fucking just run. And he did it.
Yeah.
Give him props. Well, thank you, guys. This is episode 1 of the Brothers of Liberty podcast.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in.
Have a good day, guys.